community thrive. And we're proud to have a wide variety of different member companies, so not just tech industry companies, but also companies from other industries that recognize that technology helps all of us and that it's important to support tech in our region. And if you're not a member, or if you're curious to just learn more about K-Tech, you can visit our website at knoxtech.org. And we hope you'll consider joining. We've got a lot of fun events going on coming up soon. And we get to do all of them virtually through this awesome platform, Lunchpool. And we're super grateful to Lunchpool for hosting all of our virtual events during this time, helping us to stay connected. And it's also a great way for us to support one of our member companies, because Lunchpool is a K-Tech member. So few announcements before we get started with the good stuff. A week from today is the Women in Tech virtual lunch workshop, and we're going to be going over personal branding on LinkedIn. So if you came to the previous Women in Tech, we talked about personal branding, and this time we're going to go even more in depth with specifically what you can do with your LinkedIn profile to help that. If you're a woman, obviously you're welcome, and even if you're not female, you are still welcome to join. There's going to be a lot of good information shared, and that starts at 11:30 a.m. on the 22nd. Happy Hour comes up on July 28th. If you haven't been to one of our virtual happy hours yet, you definitely need to come. We're going to be doing a giveaway, so keep an eye out for that soon on social media, because there's a good chance you can get some free beer delivered right to your doorstep to enjoy with us and sip along while we do our happy hour. And we'll be having a guest from ORNL join us for that. So lots of good info as well, along with the chance to network. And on August 5th, we're going to be doing a lunch and learn on the tech workforce. So this is looking ahead at, what can we expect with HR, the way things are now especially, and in the future. And then on the 11th, we're having a UX event in partnership with the Knoxville Entrepreneur Center. And that's a pretty exciting one. If you don't speak tech talk, UX means user experience, and that's basically just when you're on a website, what it looks like. And this is talking about the people who design that and everything that goes into creating that experience. And so stay tuned for more info on that soon. So all of the events are posted on our website or on our social media. And but the best way probably to stay in touch with everything and make sure you don't miss anything is the weekly newsletter that goes out. So if you don't get those already, you can subscribe by going to knoxtech.org, and there's a sign up form at the bottom that you can subscribe for that. And so, like I said, for the time being, we're keeping all our events virtual, and hope that you're enjoying the Lunchpool platform, especially if you haven't used it before. If you look over on the right side, if you haven't been in the chat yet, there's a little chat window on the right side of your screen. And so that we're going to be using a lot today, because today is going to be really interactive. You're going to have a chance to ask the panelists whatever questions you have about marketing for tech, marketing in light of COVID, pivots, and all those good things. So you'll see that there's a Q&A tab. So if you click Q&A, that's where you can submit your questions. So start thinking of those now and putting those in. And then right now, one of the questions that our panelists had for you is they want to know what industry you're a part of, because obviously it's not just tech industry here. So what industry you're a part of, or maybe if you are in tech industry, what type of service do you offer? Because there's a lot of variety there as well. So go in that general chat tab and type in your answer right there of what industry you're in, and that way they can start to see that come in. So I'm going to do it really quickly. And hopefully I can see everybody else coming in. There we go. I see them starting. IT Managed Services, Writing Services from Lisa Skinner, Colby, Commercial Photography and Videography. So keep those coming in. That way our panelists will be able to see a little bit about you and be able to tailor their answers today to you and the industries that we have here represented. And so enough from me. Without further ado, it's my privilege to introduce Chris Hill, who I believe is already on stage here with me.
Yep.
And he is from the Knoxville AMA. And so he's going to kick things off here, and then you'll get to hear a little bit from the other panelists before we get into the question part.
Yeah, thank you, Jenna. Well, as Jenna said, I'm Chris Hill. I'm currently the president of AMA Knoxville, or the American Marketing Association, here in Knoxville. And yeah, we're excited to be with you guys here today. We've brought some of our board members along to talk about our experience in marketing in tech, and also how to use technology, or use marketing technology as well. So excited to be here to talk with you guys today. At AMA, we bring together marketing minds across Knoxville and the surrounding areas. These businesses include local startups like some of you all, legendary brands that are associated with East Tennessee, and really a little bit of everything in between. Even during these times that we're facing right now with everything going on, we're working to assure that you guys have ways to learn and develop professionally. We offer a monthly luncheon. If you all are interested in that, definitely follow us on Facebook and on social media to get clued into the next one. We do the one every second Wednesday of every month. But we do virtual luncheons. We are in the process of creating some new virtual workshops, and we'll do an annual conference, which, let's just be honest, will probably be virtual this fall as well. So really looking forward to that. And in addition, we have ways for you to connect and learn in the community through our nonprofit engagements with organizations like Leaders for Readers and even Second Harvest. And we're also responsible for 2 annual scholarships in marketing at the University of Tennessee, thanks in part due to our large endowment that we have through years and years of the AMA legacy in Knoxville. So we'd love to just, as we kick this off, just invite everyone to come and learn a little bit more about AMA. If you're looking to improve your marketing skills or connect with other people in the marketing field, this is a great way to do that, especially if you're like me, an entrepreneur, and don't necessarily always have the time to start your business or to focus on marketing in your business. This is a great place to meet people and get connected. So yeah, with that, we have a diverse mix of industries in AMA, and we'd love to invite you all to be a part. We offer, again, opportunity to connect with other marketing professionals. And, we also, as being an AMA member, you get, a discount on the rates for the luncheons, the workshops, the conference. And you also get national discounts through our local and AMA sponsors as well. So there's a lot of benefits to being an AMA member. Obviously, I'm kind of running through it quickly here. If you want to learn more, go to amaknoxville.com/membership, or definitely just reach out to us directly and ask about where you can learn more. So we're really excited to talk today. And with that said, I am going to go ahead and queue up Jess Gutman to talk. She's our immediate past president, and I deemed her the MC for this event. So thank you, Jess, for joining us.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Like Chris said, I'm Jess Gutman. I'm the immediate past president for AMA Knoxville. So my term as president ended on June 30th, and Chris came on board as president July 1. So I'm really excited for his leadership this year and know he's going to do great things to further our organization's mission. So at this time, we're about to hear from our panelists about their experience with marketing and how their organization is currently utilizing marketing for tech. But I'll start off by quickly introducing myself. So I'm Jess. Jess. Um, I am the immediate past president for AMA Knoxville, but my day job entails working as the digital marketing and art director at Big Slate Media. We are a local content creation agency that specializes in video production, drone videography and photography, animation, and social media management. And before anyone asks, I do not handle the drones at all. I do not have my drone license. I can't tell you anything about flying drones, even though that's some of the coolest tech that we get to work with in our office. But unfortunately, I'm too afraid that I will crash and destroy these very precious cameras. So I do not handle the drones. But we work with a large number of brands across a wide variety of industries. Some national names like ESPN, HGTV, Bell Helicopters, Red Bull. But our primary focus is on community organizations and small businesses, places like the Knoxville Chamber, the Blunt Partnership, Knoxville Utilities Board, and UT. I got my career in marketing started at the Knoxville Chamber, where I served as their communications and marketing manager for several years. So I have experience marketing not only the Chamber's initiatives, but the economic development initiatives, which entails marketing all the innovation and technology in our region to promoting that to recruit outside companies and talent as well. So that's a little bit about me. These days, I'm still working from home, especially with the rising numbers in Knox County. We are a small team at Big Slate Media, and we are able to do our jobs at home, except for video shoots, which we are currently doing more safely with masks and sanitation and all of that. But these days you can find me probably listening to Broadway soundtracks nonstop, watching Hamilton for the millionth time on Disney Plus, and drinking sour beer. So that's kind of a little bit about me. And I, like Chris said, I will be serving as sort of the moderator, MC, most important person here is what I was told. That's just what they told me. But before we start asking our panelists questions, I'm going to go ahead and introduce them one at a time. So you already sort of met him, but first, we have Chris Hill. Chris Hill is the president of AMA Knoxville. He's a Tennessee native and owner of the podcast production company Humblepod. In addition to producing podcasts for nationally recognized thought leaders and Silicon Valley startups, Chris is the co-host and producer of the award-winning Our Humble Beer podcast. He also lectures at the University of Tennessee, where he leads courses on podcasts and marketing. He received his undergraduate degree in business at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, where he majored in marketing and entrepreneurship. And he later received his MBA from King University. So I'm going to let Chris come back for a little bit to maybe expand a little bit on his tech, marketing and tech experience and kind of tell us what he's been up to these days.
Yeah, thank you, Jess. So my experience in tech goes probably way back to the beginning of my college career, or not college, business career after college. I started working in telecom at Windstream Communications in their leadership development program. And I won't bore you with my entire resume and all my background, but needless to say, I've spent about 5 years in telecom. And then the rest of that time working in small businesses, both on the marketing side and on the tech side, doing a lot of business development, sales, lead generation, things like that. So a lot of my background is just focused around that knowledge, that skill set of IT and growing and building a business. And so I leveraged that about a year and a half ago into starting a company called Humblepod, and it is a podcast production company. And we, like Jess said, work with clients all over the U.S. and including some Silicon Valley startups and people in that space. And so I've had a lot of opportunity to learn about the tech industry and what the needs and challenges are of people that are deep within this sphere in what their marketing needs are. I've found, as many of you probably are already familiar, podcasts are still growing. I mean, there was definitely a dip when COVID struck us back in March, but overall listenership and stuff is up where it used to be. And in fact, I think the past two or 3 months have been the fastest growing number of podcasts that have been added to Apple Podcasts, and Apple actually surpassed 1 million new podcasts on their, or 1 million total podcasts on their platform this year during this time of everything going on with COVID as well. So it's a growing industry. Businesses, even this is the perfect example, organizations are having to reassess how they approach digital media, how they approach conferences, how they approach events that they would normally do live and in person and now do it virtually. And so we've become a key source for businesses that are looking to produce content in those areas, especially as it relates to podcasting and podcast content, as a source for those businesses to do that. So it's been a fascinating time to be in this space. And yeah, I just love tech. I love being in this space, and definitely has been fun seeing things grow and develop over the years that I've been in in this industry. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. And with that, I guess I'll hand it back to Jess.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. And I can definitely vouch for how awesome Chris is with podcasting and podcast production. So if your organization or business is considering starting a podcast, I'm sure Chris would be happy to chat with you guys about what that looks like getting started. Mm-hmm. And so next we have Holly Yalove. Before recently founding HY5 Consulting, Holly was the chief strategist and owner of VO Design, an award-winning web design and digital marketing agency founded in 2008. She's a digital and inbound marketing expert with over 25 years of professional experience and a passion for leveraging technology to grow businesses. As a HubSpot certified trainer and Knoxville's HubSpot user group leader, Holly regularly conducts digital marketing and sales training at events across the United States. So I'm going to go ahead and let Holly tell you a little bit more about herself and her experience in marketing with tech.
Yeah. So for purposes of this, I guess I'll talk mainly about my time owning VO Design. And we both, had technical services, web design, digital marketing, but also have clients in IT space, software as a service, and various other sort of tech-related fields and others as well. On the day-to-day, I was in charge of marketing for our agency and, directly managing our business development team. And as chief strategist for the agency, I conducted ongoing training with our content strategy, SEO, and SEM team members, and also worked directly on some of our VIP retainer accounts, really mostly related to high-level strategy and leveraging marketing technology like HubSpot and various solutions that integrate with HubSpot. We were a HubSpot solutions partner since 2013, so we heavily leveraged that platform for ourselves as well as our clients. Back in the day, HubSpot was mainly focused on marketing, but today is a whole suite of tools for your business flywheel, meaning marketing, sales, and service. So that's a little bit, more about me and my day-to-day was involved with user experience and our own website, trying to grow traffic, improve leads, improve the quality of the leads, and work really closely with my business development team together in marketing automation and that sort of thing. So I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Holly. And I also want to quickly mention that Holly is president-elect of AMA Knoxville, so she will be coming on board as president of AMA starting next summer. So we're really excited to and look forward to her leadership as well. So we have one more panelist that I want to introduce, but I just wanted to remind everyone to go ahead and start submitting questions for our panelists in the Q&A section of the platform. So if you wouldn't mind, just start submitting some questions so we have stuff to talk about in a little bit. But last but not least is Mal Alder. It's hard to say which came first, Mal's deftness at navigating the 21st century construct for digital communication, or her interest in social trends, politics, pop culture, and news cycles. Social media is an important means of fostering growth, cultivating prospects, and pre-segmenting intended target groups, all of which are in Mal's wheelhouse. Mal has earned Google certifications in search ads, display ads, and analytics, understanding what combinations of strategies work best in different scenarios. She's able to generate upticks in website traffic and magnify an organization's online presence through SEO-friendly blogs and website content. The fresh approach she brings to social media communication is bolstered by a BA in creative writing and minor in journalism and electronic media from the University of Tennessee, as well as graphic design and web development experience. So Mal, if you want to go ahead and tell everyone a little bit more about yourself.
Hello, I'm Mal Alder. I'm the owner of Alder & Co. We are a full-service digital marketing agency focused on helping small to mid-sized businesses grow. Like any true millennial, I probably got my start in the tech world by HTML on my MySpace page. And kind of from there, I've always just been interested with connecting with things online and the just cool things you can do with technology. During my time at UT, I was the science and technology editor as well as the managing editor for TNJN, the school's online newspaper, as part of my minor with the School of Journalism. And since graduating, I got my first job at a digital marketing-based marketing agency in Sevierville, where we focus on the travel and tourism industry. And that was probably the first time that I realized all the different facets that you can leverage tech and information and social connections to help businesses grow. And from there, I've kind of just expanded and tried to learn as much as I can in helping businesses, especially kind of the mom and pop shops, get the leverage that they need to compete with the bigger brands, but on a more affordable budget. And that's kind of my spiel, so I'll give it back to Jess.
Awesome. Thanks, Mel. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So we're opening up for the audience to ask questions. So as our panelists continue to answer questions, be sure to utilize that Q&A tab on the right side of your screen and post your question, or you can actually upvote a question someone already else asked that you would love to hear answered. That'll kind of boost it up a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll bring up all the panelists then, if Holly and Mal want to join us as well. Look at that. Hi, everyone. So we're going to get started with the Q&A. So the first question is, I'm going to kind of broaden it a little bit because it says, how should businesses adjust their 2020 social media strategies in the midst of COVID-19? But I'm going to broaden it a little bit so everyone can kind of have a little bit of input on this, because I want everyone to have a chance to speak at the beginning. But how should businesses adjust their 2020 marketing strategies in the midst of COVID-19? I know this is on every business owner's mind at the moment. So what are some quick strategy adjustments that they should make now in terms of finishing up 2020 and moving even into 2021? I'll open the floor.
Just anybody?
Chris, do you want to, or Holly, do you want to?
Oh, it's me.
Get into podcasting, maybe?
Yeah, get into podcasting. That's what everybody else seems to be doing. I'm just kidding. But no, I think honestly, like a lot of the big adjustments that I see being made are, just refocusing their digital strategy. A lot of the larger tech businesses that I see and work with are bumping up against, we were supposed to go to all these events and all these conferences, and now we don't know what to do. We don't have that. So, I mean, frankly, it is about reinvesting into content, reinvesting into more marketing on other platforms. There's a lot of, just to be frank, this time is also kind of a minefield with the amount of social issues that are also going on top of COVID and everything else you have to be cautious about. But like, if you can find ways to navigate that wisely, I definitely recommend, finding avenues to, reallocate those budgets, reallocate that focus onto, into content and into things that you can promote. And the reason I'm saying it like that is, I'm thinking about like Facebook. Like there's a big push right now to not advertise on Facebook for political reasons or whatever philosophical reasons you may have. So like finding out what's going to be best, finding out what's going to, go over well with your audience too is probably an important part of that. But I think now more than ever, it's about, having a listening ear during that as well. So just all those things combined, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity, but there's also a lot of challenges, I guess, is kind of where I'm going with it.
I think another big thing right now, and I'm a big advocate for, especially on social media, making sure that your brand's staying authentic. I talk to clients all the time, like this isn't stock photos aren't necessarily what is going to build loyalty and engagement on social platforms. So this is a good opportunity, especially a lot of the times in tech industry, it's hard to have a lot of visual content of the products you sell, but it's the perfect time for you to introduce the people behind who builds the products that your company offers. We're working from home, so you can be a little more playful and a little more human on your side. And also, speaking to authenticity, this is the time in addition to COVID and what else is going on socially, really highlighting who your business is and the needs you can provide solutions for without overselling. If you work closely with businesses, start curating those testimonials. Or another way is just having your employees tell your story. Because I think a lot of the time for people right now, they're looking for businesses to show, not tell.
Two cents is just on this is, focusing on how COVID has changed trends, using data to see how, keyword search trends have changed, and, really using the time that, for ongoing education for yourself and your team members, just really working on your strategies to keep connected with your customers to make sure, that their trust in you and the loyalty remains, customers and prospects as well. So it's a scary time for everybody, and the more comforted you can make them feel about how you can help them, come from a place of helping always, I think, provide value.
That's exactly what I was about to say, Holly. I was going to say, with everything that you're promoting and doing, make sure that you're providing value for your audience. That's the most important thing. That's like step one in marketing in general. But no, that's great. I do think that this time, I know people are starting to transition back to work and things like that, but the working from home and the little bit slower period for us actually allowed us to take a look at our own branding and our own strategy, and kind of start with like the base questions, like who are we, and really get started in some serious discussions around branding and messaging for our company. But yeah, I do know that it is a weird time. So next question. Oh, this is a good one that everyone can speak on. So what are some ways businesses who do not have a large advertising budget can increase their online visibility? I know all of us have experience working with startups and small businesses that have very little marketing budget. So if Mal, I'll let you go ahead and get started on that.
Yeah, that is kind of the bread and butter that I work with. The first step I always talk through clients, if you've ever read Simon Sinek's Start with Why, the big thing is like, why are you advertising on social media? Like, is that really where you curate leads? So that's kind of the first question. And what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to get leads? Are you trying to increase your brand awareness? What solution are you trying to find? And from there, it's really important to kind of identify what platform your brand does best on. For a good kind of case in point, LinkedIn versus Facebook advertising. LinkedIn is a little more expensive than Facebook, but it's a lot better space for IT, tech, and strong business to business, just for the pure fact that you can get better targeting. It's good on Facebook, but you can't target those industries, those job titles, those specific companies that you're trying to go after that you could on LinkedIn through either a sponsored content or a sponsored in-mail campaign. So if you're working on a tight budget, kind of work smarter with your dollars. And as you start getting more money in, then you can start broadening kind of where you're advertising to help brand awareness on those platforms like Facebook and Instagram. Another option, if you have a limited budget, social advertising may not be the best space for you. You probably need to look into a targeted search campaign on Google where you're leveraging long tail keywords. So a good example, instead of saying, IT Knoxville as your keyword, do IT companies in Knoxville for healthcare. You're not going to get as many clicks, and you're not going to get as much kind of, what's the word, like business from it. It's not going to be a high quantity, but the quality is going to be better because you're ensuring that you're putting your content in front of someone who's specifically looking for you, as opposed to casting a wide net, spending a lot of dollars, and possibly not seeing a lot of return.
Yeah, I would, jump in here and say also it's slower, but search engine optimization has compounding results. And like I mentioned earlier, just looking at those trends and how they've changed, and sort of maybe taking advantage of like Mal said, longer tail keywords, because if your search engine optimization is better, your ads, especially on like Google ads, will work better because that page will be optimized for the ad, which helps your quality score, which helps the cost of the ad go down. So I think constantly working on your content and your website conversions. You don't need as much traffic if that traffic that gets there converts better. So now is the perfect time to focus on the UI UX, user interface and user experience on your website, your conversion points. Is an embedded calendar getting people to book a meeting or a sales consult, or live chat has had some huge changes in general globally with COVID. So if you're not using live chat on your website, and HubSpot offers that free in their free product, this is the perfect time to implement that and leverage that to get some more business, depending on how people purchase your services. And a lot of technology related fields, it's sort of trying to get that initial demo or consult to get that foot in the door.
Yeah, and I would just add to what's being said here. Like, now's probably a really good time to step back and evaluate what your cost per acquisition is, and really determine. Take a step back and do some simple math. We had this lead, and we know they came through Google Ads. Well, how many ads did we spend before we got that lead and that became a sale? Evaluate that, because it may be that spending more in an area is going to help you. Better than you think, if you take the time to step back and really assess, where that solution lies. And so that's kind of my thought. I've seen it, play out in the podcasting world, because, people are willing to spend a lot of money on ads, and it's like, well, why are you willing to do that? Well, we've evaluated our cost per acquisition, and we know that, we have a high, we may not get a lot of leads from you all, but we have a huge return on investment, because that person converts almost every time we get a conversion out of that person when they come through this lead source. So evaluate that, think about how that plays into your, into your budget and everything else that you're doing. So that's my 2 cents.
Awesome. I think that's great. And if you have evaluated, I would just add that if you have evaluated and decided there is a certain channel that your business, that the cost would be worth it for you, make sure that the quality of your content is good. And even with a low budget, you can produce high quality content that will resonate with your audience as well. There are a ton of free graphic design softwares out there. Canva is a great one if you're just getting started. And even iPhones nowadays, you can make some pretty decent video quality. So just make sure that the quality of your content is good as well if you are advertising it or boosting it on social media. One that I thought would be really interesting for you, Chris, to kind of get started for us is how can tech companies leverage co-branded marketing material? So thinking about cross-promotion and things like that with podcasting, that's super interesting, because you could have a wide net like tech podcast that then partners with a company that does a very niche sort of tech, and how they can cross-promote and co-brand that episode and get it out there.
Yeah. So with co-branded content, or especially with the example that you mentioned, there's a lot of opportunities in podcasting for free promotion. If you can find a solid thought leader that speaks to your industry and does a podcast on your industry, like for instance, one of my clients runs a podcast called Screaming in the Cloud. It's all about cloud software storage management, all that stuff. He's a huge thought leader in that industry. And if you do something in the world of cloud, you might want to go to him and say, hey, can we get on your show? Can we talk to you? And there's, paid ways you can do that. There's free ways and organic ways you can do that. But finding those types of partnerships is a great way to do it. I mean, I've joked for years about how podcasting is kind of a magic wand, in that you are able to really, say things like, oh, I've got a podcast. Will you be on it? And a lot of times people will go, yes, because they want their voice to be heard. They think if you've got a platform that it's an opportunity for them, and it's an opportunity for them to have their voice heard, but it's also for you, if you're creating a podcast, a chance for you to bring people on. And the inverse is also true. It's an opportunity for you to be on someone else's platform and get people interested in what you do by being on their shows. So that to me would be kind of the strategy, is find out if you can get on some shows, try and reach out to people. I will tell you, if it's a weekly podcast or a podcast that promotes more than just once a month, there is a very good chance they're always looking for guests, and they're always looking to fill that schedule. So look for people that, look for people that, again, fit your industry and, might have a show like that, and reach out to them. Again, it might be a small audience. You might find out it's only a few hundred people that listen, but that few hundred people might be people that make the buying decisions. So, keep those things in mind as you look at it. But for me, that's the co-branded content I'm really familiar with. Another option too is webinars, web videos, things like that. Co-branding with another business to, to do a Q&A or to do a session where you have, have a professionally produced video or professionally produced content that, highlights your brand, highlights your business, and allows you to show off. Now is a great time with COVID to do that, provided you can, supply the right camera equipment and microphone and everything else. And even if you can't, just doing a laptop Zoom recording is a great way to start out with that type of content, just to get people interested in your brand and your business and what you do. But yeah, be thinking about that. And as always, bring other people in, highlight other people. I think that really helps drive home that co-branded. When you're talking about co-branded, bringing in other brands, bringing in other businesses, and make sure they promote it on their end as well, because that'll help drive some earned media, if you will, for content like that. So.
Awesome. Holly, Mal, do you have any thoughts on co-branded content, maybe for social or web, and what that looks like in terms of cross-promotion and expanding your reach through that?
I would just say, repurpose, reuse as much as possible. So, both companies could be leveraging, that same content, either for, depending on what phase of the buyer's journey it was built for. Is it built for, sort of a top of the funnel, when people more are just in an exploratory mode, or is it built, more for comparing solutions, or getting down to choosing, the provider or the vendor. But repurpose it and reuse it as many places as possible would be my advice.
Yeah, I fully agree with Holly, and Chris kind of touched on this too, like making sure that the people you do bring in kind of put at least as much effort into promoting it as much as you are, because you are giving them an opportunity and a platform to widen their audience reach. And so just make sure you're working with someone that kind of gives you the same respect.
Just to chime in there, Mal, I'll say, make sure that you make it as easy on them to promote you as possible. Pre-write tweets, pre-write content, just make it to where it's like, hey, copy paste this and maybe modify it if you want to, but post it on this day and we're good. Also really helps.
Awesome. And if it's something, guys, that's like a blog article in terms of co-branded blogs, what does that look like in terms of like backlinking to each other's websites? Like, what does that do for the SEO of these companies?
Depending on who has the most authority on their domain, one person may be helping the other more, but like perhaps coordinating on the type, the text what text would be linked. It's not as important as it used to be, but backlinks are hugely important. But the alt the alt text, or the way that you've coded that link, could help if you're being strategic in that. And I would say be careful about duplicate content. So if it's one blog, decide whose website that blog post might live on, and if you both wanted it, you can have one of those posts, do, a canonical link back and say, hey, this is the authority on it, but I'm also want it here for people who are subscribed to my blog, because it could still have value to those people, even if it didn't have SEO value, because you weren't the first person to post it, or you weren't, the person that had that unique content. But
another, to kind of tag on to what Holly was saying, I'm a huge fan of UTM links. It's completely free to do. And if this is something new you're doing, or you're kind of experimenting with it, like maybe this is your first time doing blog post, or even if this is your first time kind of sponsoring an event or something, adding that UTM tag to the backlink to your website will then help it feed to your Google Analytics. So you can really see how much traffic that sent to you, to kind of see if this is something that you want to continue doing through the future. And if you want it to be a pretty URL, because the UTM does kind of give it a long string, you can always set up a 301 redirect to a vanity. So the user could see like knoxtech.org/AMA. But for us, we could set it up that redirects to something with the UTM link, and it keeps user experience high, but tracking also kind of comes to the forefront.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Next question comes from Amy, and I'm hoping I'm understanding what she's asking. It's a question about prioritizing technology. She says there's so many solutions out there that trying to learn all of them can sometimes feel detrimental to business growth. So I'm thinking she means in terms of technology and software solutions for marketing. So there is a lot of that out there. and Holly, I know you know about one pretty well. So if we wanted to talk a little bit about how can people not be so overwhelmed with all the options and actually figure out what will work best for them.
So obviously HubSpot I work with really, really heavily, but our agency also used many other technologies, Moz, SpyFu, Alexa, and it is challenging to learn them all, even if that's what you do every day. So advice one would be, you could call in a consultant that specialize in that technology, sort of can help you learn it. A lot of those solutions also, though, I would say, if we're working on budget, go and actually take the time to look at their help guides, which, that's how I got to be, in many ways, like practicing what I preached, but also just pouring through help documentation. You'll find all kinds of nuggets that you never knew were there. You're like, oh, I didn't know you could do that with this. But a lot of the software companies that build software for marketing and tech, for marketing, sales and service, they want to retain you as a customer, and they offer education. Many of them, especially HubSpot, lots of free education. So if you can take the time on the front end by taking the education that they offer, then it's going to save you time trying to remember how to navigate to this or that, or how to execute this or that. And then, your colleagues will look to you as the expert. And that's what I found. I just, I love learning, and I love, staying on top of the newest product releases for various things that we use. But I found the ones I stumbled with more, or the ones that took up more of my time, were the ones I didn't bother to stop and just take the education on the front end.
Another big thing. Oh, sorry. Don't feel like you have to pick one right off the gate. I mentioned it earlier. It's always really important to find the start with why. Like, what are you trying to achieve with the platform you're bringing on? A good example, if you're looking at social media management, there's hundreds of tools probably that you could use, and it's overwhelming. But what do you want that tool to do for you? To compare to, there's Buffer, who's pretty much just a glorified scheduling tool. If you're familiar with Hootsuite, it's really similar to that. It's extremely cost effective, but what makes it not cost effective is if you want to pay for the analytics. But if you're someone who doesn't, I mean, it would break my heart, but if you're someone who doesn't necessarily care about the analytics, then Buffer is probably the right tool for you. However, if you're someone who wants to integrate social listening, really dive into the analytics of what posts are performing best, in addition to having help of what time of day you should post, in addition to scheduling, then maybe you want to look into something like Sprout Social. So kind of not being afraid to take advantage of the free trials that a lot of these platforms offer, and kind of go into it with the mindset of what you're trying to achieve by utilizing them really helps.
And Mal, you kind of stole what I was going to say. But yeah, it comes down, like I was just going to say, like, admittedly, I am really bad. When everything went to COVID, I started, registering for services I hadn't used before, just so that I would have access to them and so that I could, help my clients in, a way that they may or may not use. But I think that, like, the important thing is definitely, like Mal said, like making sure that you have a known use for that service and that you're going to use it, because some of these services are pretty cheap month to month, but some of these services also lure you in with, oh, it's $10 a month, and then you find out it's $120 up front. So does it fit your cash flow? Does it fit your budget? Are always big considerations. And even if it's just $120 for you, are you going to use it for a full year, or is it just going to sit there and not be used month to month? So evaluate that as you go. And also think about the professionals that are out there that may be experts in that technology that you can outsource to. It might be that certain things, like, hypothetically, yes, like Mal or Holly are great experts in their own right with their respective services. But also, like, even just podcasting, it's like the time it takes to learn Adobe Audition or learn any type of editing software, even if you're just using Anchor, which don't use Anchor, side note. But even if you are, like, it's still very time consuming. And even if you know it well, it's time consuming. So
yeah, what's your
think about
time
that
worth?
time cost. Yeah. Think about that as well as you go. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Awesome, thanks. And kind of related, just because Holly brought it up, but I did want to reiterate that HubSpot does offer a ton of free certifications and trainings, a ton, content marketing, social media. So if you're looking for great free trainings on these topics, go ahead and check out HubSpot's free certifications.
Yeah, and for anybody who's doing jobs looking for something to pad their resume right now, that's a really quick and easy way to pad your resume, just to be frank. It's really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just if we're talking about free certifications, Google Ads also does. And you can get specialized in search, display, mobile, and video are the 4 different kind of pillars that you can get certified in with Google Ads.
Yeah.
And analytics. You can also do a Google Analytics certification, all for free, offered through Google.
And I think a lot of those software platforms like Moz and others are sort of noticing that people are taking this time that they're maybe working, spending more time online and spending more time on their education, either between jobs or because they're no longer able to meet with people in person as they have a little bit extra time in their workday. A lot of the various, software platforms, it is a lure in that they're offering it, but it's some great free education out there.
Absolutely. So we'll move on to another fun topic of conversation, email marketing, which I know Holly, Mal, and I have experience in. Chris, I don't know about you. I don't think so. So maybe you can take a backseat a little bit on this conversation. So the question is, what are the key considerations for evaluating the best email marketing platforms to use now and in the future? And I know specifically now, I feel like email marketing has grown significantly during the time of COVID. Before, people were like, email is dead, which we all knew email was not dead. But COVID, it proved that email is not dead. So what are some of those key considerations for figuring out what the best platforms to use now and moving forward, and then maybe the best types of content that work for email marketing?
I can start us off if you want on
Sure,
that one.
go for it.
So yeah, as you mentioned, Jess, like on the statistics, there's a lot of companies like HubSpot, Campaign Monitor, Omnichannel, and others that are publishing benchmark reports right now. And actually, emails, it may feel like it, and it's because it's true. Like the number of emails that marketers and salespeople are sending have drastically increased. And although normally, if you would increase your email send rates, you're going to have a lower open rate because of the climate right now. They're finding it's actually like up to 36% increase in open rates. However, the click rates have gone down. It's still sort of the tried and true. Just kind of giving some statistics on this as well. Like the more email you send, even though overall the trend is a better open rates, the lower the open rate gets. So again, providing that value in your content. And things that I would highly consider if choosing to switch your email marketing platform. Can you do personalization in that platform? That's, and how deeply can you do that personalization? Can you segment? That's really important to be able to send the right message to the right audience at the right time, and not do, it may be quicker, but if you just do a blast, it's going to be less effective, than if you can actually change up the content based on that person's job role, geographic location, and other considerations, where they are in the buyer's journey. And the ability to also, for email deliverability, the ability to do gray mail suppression. So basically, once someone has not engaged with your emails, that's only hurting you. Don't send it to people who don't want to hear from you, because they're hurting your email deliverability for your people who do want to hear from you. So a system, and of course HubSpot does have all these things, but some other tools out there do as well. A system that you're able to suppress sending emails automatically to people who have not opened the last 11 emails from you is one example. And lastly, I would say, I think it's ever important with building that trust and loyalty with your prospects and customers, to have an email system that's tied in with your CRM, so you can see other things that are going on with that person. I don't know about many solutions, but some, like HubSpot, have the ability to see their website visits, interactions with one-to-one emails, and that sort of thing. So, all right, I'm done. Sorry for the multi-mention of HubSpot, but I'm a fan.
And all the points Holly hit on are really great. If you're a smaller company who maybe hasn't had a chance to invest in a CRM, or you're using Google Sheets or an Excel sheet or something, you can, again, those UTM links for the links within your email going back to your site, so you can kind of follow the path of what people did once they clicked from the email and went to your website. Another thing I would want you to look at, I feel like it's going to kind of be a drinking game of me saying start with why you're choosing certain platforms, but does it fit the needs, and does it help fill the gaps of tools, oh, that's my cat, that you don't currently have? So maybe you're not a great designer or HTML experts and things like that. Is the platform you're using going to help you still design an on-brand email that looks good on both desktops and mobile? Or how does it integrate with maybe linking to different aspects of your site, or maybe you want to do a 2-column, just kind of thinking through things like that help make it look nice, in addition to kind of helping facilitate your marketing goals.
Awesome. Thanks, ladies. This is a fun question. So Andrew Jones wants to know, what's the best way to start building a personal brand? That's sort of a general question for everyone. And Chris, if you want to go ahead and get started on.
I thought Mal was going to say
start with
why. Yeah.
Drinking. You just think this is coffee. But seriously, but yeah, no, I mean, but seriously, start with why you want to build a personal brand. I think that is an important thing. I mean, I work with a lot of people that are individual thought leaders. They are, known in their sphere for being a consultant or things like that. And they look to podcasting to be their way of establishing themselves as a thought leader. In fact, one of my early clients was someone who said, look, I am an expert in this industry. I have written a book on network monitoring, and literally with O'Reilly has the network monitoring lizard on the book, like network monitoring, the monitor lizard on the book, I guess is what I should say, but like has written the book on it for O'Reilly. And he was like, but people in the industry, like they kind of pass me by still, like nobody really recognizes me for who I am. And so we started with a process of, just trying to evaluate, what would be a great way to do a podcast on, the services of DevOps and everything that surrounds marketing, so that he could build more of a thought leadership in this area, and helped him get to a point where he was able to go and like do public speaking at Starbucks headquarters in Washington. So, things like that are the things that, being a thought leader can lead to, but it starts with, understanding what your voice is, how you want to communicate that voice to other people, and really what gap you fill, in that space. I would say, I think a really good book to look at is Obviously Awesome. It's a book on positioning, and it's specifically written for tech. And it's on how to position your business, but it also applies to everything else outside of just an individual business. It could be yourself and how you position yourself and do those things as well. So definitely a good book and a pretty quick read too. But might be a good way for those of you who are thinking, how do I become, a thought leader in this space, or how do I do that? So start with that. The answer may not be podcasting, to be honest. You got to think about your audience. You got to think about where they're going to be met best. If it's, if for some reason your audience that you really want to talk to are, like whatever the current generation of kids is these days. I feel like an old man saying that. Whatever the youngest generation is right now, like if you're trying to speak to them, it might be that you're better served by being on Instagram, or being on TikTok or something like that, but if you're a middle-aged person, that might not be the best place for you to be. So think about the audience you're trying to reach, and where they're going to be, and act accordingly as you build that content. And again, start with finding out who you are for yourself. Start with that. If you've not read Simon Sinek's Start With Why, start with the book Start With Why. It's a really good book, and it's not the only way to build a business or build ideas, but it is a good core starting point, especially when you're talking about yourself introspectively and not a business that you're trying to run. Because there's a lot of deep questions to answer there. And also make sure you've got the time and commitment to do it, because once you really get into it, there are going to be days and weeks where you're not going to be happy with it. In podcasting, we have the term pod fade. After about 6 episodes, most podcasters really don't make it past those first 6 episodes, because they burn out, they get tired, they get exhausted of doing it. They realize the workload that's on them, and they just fade. They just don't do it as often, and it eventually dies out. So make sure you can commit to it and go from there. So, yeah.
And because I promise I've read more than one book in my life, another book to look into is Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk. That entire book is specifically set up to help answer that question. I read it a couple months ago and I loved it. But also, if you're looking for ways to kind of think of new and unique ways to present your brand on social media, all of the advice he's giving you for a personal brand can just as easily pivot, to use Holly's favorite word, and into just unique ways to advertise your business. Another thing is, we talked about it for business earlier, but look at those social platforms that you're on and evaluate, is it good for my business or is it good for me personally? As a marketer, I kind of have a soapbox spiel on, I'm not a huge fan of Twitter for businesses. I think all businesses should have a Twitter because if someone's going to complain about you, that's where they're going. But unless you're Moon Pie or Wendy's, you're just generating noise on the platform with the tweets you send. And even if you look at the content they're creating there, they're raising brand awareness, but they're not necessarily selling cookies and hamburgers.
It depends on the industry too on Twitter.
Yeah. But I think Twitter's perfect for individuals trying to build brands, as well as a YouTube channel. TikTok is great, but there's a movement on the platform right now with some things going on in the political space where we don't know if we're going to wake up tomorrow and be able to access TikTok. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind of the content you're creating, have it be on different platforms so you can access it and still be accessible in case something happens.
I just wanted to say, fun fact, Mal, I have a selfie with Simon. I'll send it to you later.
One other thing, yeah, especially since she's start with Y. But also to that point about Gary Vee, he is an excellent example and someone who does incredibly good self-branding and also does a really good job of retargeting campaigns. So much so that I don't follow him on social media anymore. But but keep that in mind. Gary Vee is great, but yeah, just be prepared.
Like, look at people who have a very strong personal brand, but also, have a business, need, business focus, and, steal shamelessly.
Yeah. So
the tactics they're using.
And it's still provide value. Whatever you do not overuse your LinkedIn premium subscription to spam everyone and their mother about whatever service you offer. We may read the messages, but we are not going to respond.
Like, date me
do not
first
be that person
before you ask me to marry you, please. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, great insights, guys. And yeah, I would just also add that building a personal brand, you would start and take the first steps as you would with building a business brand. It's the same thing. Figure out what your values are, what your mission is, what value you're trying to offer, whatever your target audience is, figure out where they are and be there. I would also recommend looking, in addition to podcasts that people might have in your industry, look into events and conferences where you might be able to provide value as a speaker. And that's another great way to build some authority within your space. And yeah, start with your why. If your why is, I want to be, if it's very self-serving in that I want to be a thought leader and an influencer in my industry, you're doing it for the wrong reason. And take a look at those thought leaders and influencers in your industry and see what they're doing, see what works, and see what's annoying. And don't do that. So next is a fun question too. So Scott wants to know about stories. So he said, stories are big for marketing today. What is the most cost-effective way to create stories that meet your clients where they are? Mal, do you want to get started on stories?
Is it fair to say stories as in like Facebook, Instagram stories?
I'm assuming that that's what he is talking about. Scott, if we're wrong,
there's storytelling.
I read it as Instagram and Facebook stories.
Okay. So we'll go with that. Scott, I'm so sorry if we're answering your question wrong. But in terms of, a cost-effective way to create stories, I think, Jess, you touched on it earlier. There's a ton of, if you're not a stellar graphic designer, there's a lot of tools like Canva, or if you already invest in the Adobe Creative Suite, there's Spark, where you can kind of manipulate templates that have already been created. So you can get that professional and polished feel without breaking your brain for 10 hours of work of trying to get like a simple 1080 by I think it's 60 pixel image. And when you do your stories, make sure there's kind of a purpose behind them. Are you trying to build engagement? Are you trying to send traffic to your website? Are you trying to just, highlight a new post that you did? I think for smaller businesses, a roadblock you hit sometimes with stories and trying to roll it into an SEO campaign or a link building strategy is you have to have a certain number of followers before you can do the swipe up to link. However, you can leverage like maybe taking a picture of your most recent post, and we've all seen it. You put the sticker on it, makes it pretty, says new post, that drives them to your site, and then use an app like Linktree or kind of something like that as the URL in your social profile that you can then give them the opportunity to either go to your website, watch your new video, listen to your new podcast, kind of things like that. I don't think there's ever a stories are here and my client is here kind of thing. It's just making sure, again, you're being authentic, you're trying to stick with your brand, and try to leverage your stories into highlights on your page. Now, I had my aha COVID moment for branding was taking posts that we've done of recent work for clients and actually having a saved story highlight. So if you go to our profile, you can click that story and you can see it. What we've done with some of our clients is we use that as a highlight reel for graphics of reviews we've made. Instagram doesn't have something set where you can go and read reviews about your company. However, by having that story saved, people can now click through it and learn more of what people are saying about our business instead of just what we're saying about our business. Or if you have a new product and you want to walk through like the ins and outs of them, maybe like from CAD design to the actual production. Again, you can post it to your stories, have them saved in your archive, and use them as a highlight reel later.
Like to say that much like your website is the landing page for your brand, but in a lot of ways your Instagram profile and social media profiles also act as a landing page for your brand. So having those branded highlight covers with archive stories is a great way to kind of show people what sort of content you've had, and they can pick and choose what they want to look at in terms of the stories you've created. And I think stories work really well for B2B because it's actually a great way to directly engage with your audiences through things like polls or quizzes or things like that. You can really ask them, hey, what is the type of content that you want to see from me? Would you rather see Q&As versus product demos, things like that. And you can ask them and they will tell you what they want to see from you. And I know during COVID, Instagram live videos have definitely increased in popularity. So doing lives, which shows up as in the stories, is also a cool way for you to interact and engage directly with your audience where they are. So they could be sitting, at home doing whatever, and you can engage with them directly that way. And yeah, like Mal said, I also think behind the scenes looks are a great content idea for stories for any industry really, but especially tech. Did Holly or Chris want to add anything about stories?
I was just going to add, I'm not so much the one on the side or anything like that for stories, but I will say Headliner, if you're doing a podcast, Headliner is a great tool that will auto-transcribe a clip from your podcast, and you can put that into a 15 or 30 second, video that you can share on Instagram or on the Facebook Stories timeline or anywhere you're using a story-esque app, because that seems like it's becoming more ubiquitous wherever you go. Another thing too is just quick, simple hardware fixes. Something as simple as I've got right here, just a little fancy LED light, not too expensive to get these on Amazon. And then also with that, something like a little tripod is really handy too. Especially something with a little bit of a camera mount, because what you can do is you can, I'm lighting myself here, but you could use this to handle the camera, and you eliminate a lot of shake in your hand just by putting it on a tripod. So if you're doing self-made videos or things like that, where you're going to be doing selfies of yourself or even recording other people, that's a great way to do it. And having somewhere to stand it that's not propped up against a book or a desk or something like that makes it a lot handier. Also a big fan of the GorillaPod style tripods as well, if you're looking at that. A little more expensive, but if we're talking about having a little bit of cash, that little tripod right there, I think, is maybe $20, if that. So it's definitely a feasible thing to do, and a quick way to get a little bit of a just that much more better video quality, especially out of the phones we have today that have 4K capabilities and image stabilization levels that are just ridiculous. Like, definitely worth the investment in something like this to help it stand out. So, yeah.
Awesome. And I'll add that if you're specifically creating content for stories, make sure it is in that vertical aspect ratio. And that's with anything. Make sure that the content you're creating is in the correct aspect ratio for whatever that channel is. Make it as visually appealing for the viewer as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. But Holly, I'm going to let you take the lead on this question. What are some common mistakes business owners should avoid on their website?
Okay. Oh gosh, there's so many. I would say one of them is not thinking only about a bottom of the funnel call to action. So if your only conversion point is contact us, and I would avoid, if possible, having your email displayed and link and open an email client. Instead, say email us. They still show an email, but have that be a clickable form. Just so you can have everything funneling into one place and not have, too many channels to keep an eye on. So again, the big thing that we see, or I've seen over the years, is just thinking only about contact us. And also the other thing is thinking about the lingo that your prospect, your ideal buyer persona, what are they using? You may have your own industry jargon, but remember, you're not speaking to your peers unless you sell to your peers. You are, especially in technology, I think there's a lot of assumption about what your ideal buyer knows how to call, what terms they use, what they're going to search to find you, and just making assumptions. Make it super easy to understand what you do. I see so many websites, they may win awards, and because they're so creative, and the menu buttons aren't the normal, like about, contact, blog. They're super creative, but that also leads to, like, don't make me think is sort of a big thing in user experience and user interface. Make it super simple to understand what you do, and make it super simple to understand where to go to find information. Don't bury things and very, very deep. That's bad for your users and bad for your search engines, meaning it takes more than 4 clicks to get to something. Have a search on the website so that if people don't know how to navigate to the information that they need, there's just so many. But I think the biggest thing on conversion and trying to get more business is think about opportunities to collect people's information on your website. So in other words, turning a visitor into a lead higher up in that buyer's journey, or in that discovery process. Educational information about that relate to your industry, and specifically would answer the pain points and challenges of your buyer persona. That we can go ahead and get their information to market to.
Mal, is there anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, I guess some of mine are more of technical, like all of what Holly said is great. And a lot of it, to summarize, like, make sure you have an internal linking strategy, not only for SEO, but for user experience. The other thing is, when you're designing your site, I run into a lot of the times it'll look great on desktop and they think, oh, it's a responsive layout, it should look fine on mobile, but it doesn't. So kind of making sure you're being conscious of when those columns break, how are they going to break on mobile? Google actually dings sites that when you land on their page and a pop-up takes up the entire screen and it's hard for users to click away or to see the actual content on the page outside of the pop-up, that actually hurts your SEO. So are you being mindful of that? Other kind of important tips: do you have Google Analytics installed on your site? It's I've had so many conversations with people being like, oh, I know I needed them, but I didn't really know how important it was. Like, if you have a website, you should have Google Analytics. And this isn't necessarily for website design and how it's set up, but just kind of a cautionary tale to business owners. Make sure you own your website. Make sure you own your Google Analytics. If you're working with a company, I've seen this a lot with companies who work with industry specific marketing agencies. No one on this call and like no one really in Knoxville, but say you're a realtor working with a bigger kind of name that just builds websites for realty companies. A lot of the times what happens there is you get locked in to their services and there's nowhere for you to go. So if you want to change marketing companies or you want to go a different direction, you want to revamp your website, if you don't have full admin access to things that third parties set up for you, you have to start from scratch. And for small businesses, not only is that frustrating because you've spent all this time and money, but you're losing years of historical data that will then help you better evaluate how to grow your business in the future. It breaks my heart every time I have to have that conversation with a business owner.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mal. And I think that means we're out of time, actually. And I feel bad that we didn't get to everyone's questions. There were some other questions about influencer marketing and experiential marketing and things like that. But of course, there is the networking portion of this event until I think 1:30. So I think we're all planning on sticking around at the table. So if you have any specific questions for any of us, go ahead and find us at one of the tables in the larger roundtable area. But so we'll send it back over to Jenna to kind of close out the event.
Yep. Thanks, Jess. And thank you so much, all of you. Lots of good info. I know I was taking notes, and hopefully everybody else, you got some good info, got some questions answered. And like Jess said, if you didn't get your question answered yet, just stick around, find them at a table, and you'll get a chance to ask them there. And I hope to see you again soon at another KTech event. Keep an eye on our social media or visit knoxtech.org. And that will fill you in on all those events that we have coming up. So some really good ones. Thanks, everybody.